intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or another print disability that makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at NiagaraFrontierRadioReading.org. Your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service now presents a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for today, Sunday, July 12th. Your readers today are
Edwin Vieira
and Dan Arth. And we'll move right over to weather. Edwin, we wait all winter for a day like today. Mostly sunny, high of 84. Mainly clear tonight, low of 63. For Monday, tomorrow, partly sunny and warm, high of 86, low of 70. Tuesday, partly sunny, windy and warm, high of 87, low of 73. For Wednesday, midweek, it's going to be hot, breezy in the PM. Going to reach up to 90 degrees on Wednesday, low of 66. Thursday, we'll have some clouds and sun. Very warm again, high of 86, low of 68. And for Friday, we're going to have clouds and sun, high of 83, low of 65. And then for Saturday, going to have a little bit of rain, some thunderstorms. A bit cooler, high of 78 and low of 63. We'll touch on just a couple interesting tidbits. Record high, Edwin, 97 degrees back in 2020, and a low of 50 degrees in July. That's cold. Back in 1962, and last year, interesting, 85 degrees high and low of 66, pretty similar to what we're going to get today. And I'll turn it over to you, Edwin.
Well, thank you, Dan. In our first story, analysis. War endgame haunted by orders to kill from Trump, from Michael Wilner of the Los Angeles Times. Shortly before President Trump ended a ceasefire with Iran this past week, Israeli officials presented his team with intelligence indicating Tehran was hatching new plots to kill him. It was not the first such warning. U.S. law enforcement and intelligence agencies have tracked evidence for years of Iranian efforts to target the president, with signals only increasing since the start of the war. Their desire to target Trump and his top aides began 6 years ago, just outside of Baghdad International Airport, when the president ordered a drone strike that killed Iran's most powerful general. The assassination of Qasem Soleimani brought the two countries to the brink of war. Yet, even as full-scale war was averted, top Iranian officials vowed revenge for the strike, authorizing attempts on the lives not just of the president, but of his Secretary of State and National Security Advisor, among others, even after they had left office. Now, calls for revenge have reached a sharper pitch in Tehran after a joint U.S.-Israeli operation killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, at the start of the war in late February. At Khamenei's funeral ceremonies this past week, red flags of vengeance flew throughout the capital as protesters explicitly called on their government to, quote, kill Trump. His son Moshtaba, the new supreme leader, was absent from the commemorations, fearing assassination himself. The prospect for foreign assassination plots targeting U.S. leaders puts the U.S. in dangerous new territory, where its embrace of political killings could ultimately place its own officials at unprecedented risk. And experts fear the existential threat of assassination has pushed peace further out of reach. When both sides believe their survival is at stake, the trust required for diplomacy becomes far harder to achieve. Israeli news organizations have reported that Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu cited Iranian attempts to kill Trump in recent years as part of his case to go to war in the first place. As U.S. officials told The Times that a range of serious threats exist against the president, including from Iran, but that Israel's intelligence pointed to a more specific plot. The official didn't provide further details. Israeli officials didn't respond to requests for comment. Iran's president, Masoud Pezeshkian, has said in recent months the government sees vengeance against U.S. officials as its, quote, legitimate duty and right, and will fulfill this great responsibility and duty with all of its might. The Soleimani killing accelerated a lifting of restraints on foreign assassinations and the taboo on targeting killing foreign leaders, with U.S. military assets have been lifted, more or less lifted, said Matt Dallek, a political professor at George Washington University. If the United States sets the example of how to conduct international relations and it is using assassination of foreign leaders as a political weapon, it's only logical that other countries will be more inclined to also engage in assassinations, Dalek added. It does seem likely Trump will have a bigger target on his back. Returning from a NATO summit in Ankara, Turkey on Wednesday, Trump was forced to switch back to an old model of Air Force One, equipped with specialized defensive technologies from a new plane given as a gift by Qatar after the Secret Service warned of potential threats to the aircraft from Iran. "They want to take me, the U.S. leader, me," Trump told reporters aboard the plane. "I'm on whatever list I saw this morning. I'm on every single one of their lists so far. And so far, I guess I've been a bit lucky, but maybe that doesn't last very long." The threat remained on his mind in the days since. In an interview with the New York Post, Trump told the reporter, "I hope you'll miss me," adding that he has, quote, been on their list for a long time. And in a subsequent social media post on Friday night, he warned of a catastrophic response he instructed the administration to pursue in the event Tehran succeeds. 1,000 missiles are locked and loaded and aimed at the Islamic Republic of Iran, he wrote, with thousands of more to immediately follow should the Iranian government act on its threat, pronounced in many corners of the globe, to assassinate or attempt to assassinate the sitting president of the United States of America, in this case, me. The United States had a decades-old prohibition against assassinating foreign leaders before Trump's presidency, codified in an executive order signed by President Gerald Ford in 1976 over concerns of a CIA plot to kill Fidel Castro. The policy was only strengthened further by subsequent administrations, fearing a new international standard for targeted killings could result in unintended consequences within the halls of Washington. Other administrations have been accused of targeting foreign leaders before. Under the Obama administration, an international coalition targeting the Libyan regime of Muammar Gaddafi during the country's 2011 civil war struck his fleeing convoy, leading to his capture and killing by rebel fighters. But experts say Trump's explicit targeting of Soleimani and Khamenei and his public celebration of their deaths marks a new paradigm. Through words and actions, President Trump has done more to normalize political violence than any other U.S. president, certainly in modern times, said Robert Pape, a professor at the University of Chicago and author of, quote, Our Own Worst Enemies, America in the Age of Violent Populism. On the international front alone, the president routinely brags about killing Iranian leaders and seizing the leader of Venezuela, among others, he added, to the point that assassination is becoming the new normal in international politics.
And our next lead story, thank you, Edwin. Amherst cops still mum on homicide. Identity of victim in April stabbing still not revealed. Article is by Stephen T. Watson. Just before 11:40 a.m. on April 22nd, Amherst police officers responding to a 911 call on Drayden Lane found a man stabbed in his upper body. He died from his wounds a short time later. This is all that Amherst police have revealed about the town's only homicide of the year. They have refused to provide further details, including the name of the victim, while the case remains under investigation nearly 3 months later. This departs from standard practice in homicides. Police often don't disclose details such as a suspect's motive for the crime, but they nearly always release the victim's identity once it's verified and next of kin are notified. I have never heard of a police agency delaying the identification of a homicide victim for months, emailed Paul Wolf, former president of the New York Coalition for Open Government and advocate for greater transparency. Experts say there is a need to balance the community's interest in learning more about a serious crime for public safety reasons with the authorities' interest in ensuring their cases end with a successful prosecution. Some observers see Amherst's unusual handling of this homicide investigation as part of a growing trend of government agencies withholding records that, in prior times, would be released to the public. Others say law enforcement and news outlets have long clashed over what information to reveal and when about major criminal incidents. You're going to have that issue come up, and it's nobody's fault, said Joseph J. Maruzak, a lawyer and former Erie County prosecutor. You're doing your job, and the police are trying to do their job, and there may be a situation where there can't be disclosure, at least temporarily. In this case, despite the Amherst Police Department's unwillingness to share details, The Buffalo News has confirmed the stabbing victim was Caden O. Nelapowicz, who died 8 days after his 21st birthday. Father, not police, identifies victim. His slaying was Amherst's first homicide in 9 months since the July 2025 fatal stabbing of 27-year-old Emma Yassim in a motel room on Niagara Falls Boulevard. Nelapowicz was discovered late in the morning of April 22nd outside a home on Drayden Lane off Niagara Falls Boulevard. He later died from his wounds at DeGraff Medical Park in North Tonawanda. Amherst police said the stabbing victim was male but did not release his name, age, or place of residence. They have not released additional information since that day, despite repeated requests from the news saying they can't reveal more while the case is under investigation. However, while reporting this story, the news found a Facebook comment from Dean Nelapowicz naming his son, Caden, as the homicide victim. Amherst Police and the Erie County District Attorney's Office, when contacted last week, confirmed Caden Nelapowitz's identity, but declined to comment further on what led to his killing. Amherst Police Captain Greg Huller, in an email Thursday, said the department hasn't named Nelapowicz because his family didn't want to jeopardize the investigation into his death. Dean Nelapowicz told the news this is true. Nelapowicz declined to speak at length with a reporter, but did say the wait for his son's killer or killers to be held accountable is deeply painful. My top concern is that these people get punished for what they did to my boy. Not a man, he was a boy, he said Friday. They killed a boy with a knife and then hit him with a car, and he still got up and ended up on a lady's porch, and then the police were called. It makes me sick to my stomach. I have nightmares about this. Names typically revealed sooner. Area police agencies vary in their levels of openness. Town of Tonawanda Police, for example, don't provide any information about incidents beyond what is stated in their news releases or included in records obtained through Freedom of the Information Law requests. Other police departments, such as Hamburg and West Seneca, have public information officers who are willing to answer follow-up questions from news reporters. When it comes to homicides, investigators may delay releasing the identity of the victim until that information is verified and family members are notified of the death. Disclosure typically comes soon after this. For example, in November, a woman was killed on Walden Avenue. Less than 24 hours later, at the same time they announced an arrest in the case, Cheektowaga police released the victim's name to the public. In December, Hamburg police shared information with the public about a killing that happened on McKinley Parkway a day earlier. The victim's name was included in the news release, which also announced an arrest in the case. Recently, Niagara Falls police took about a day to release the names of 2 people fatally shot during a weekend of violence. The shootings happened at around 1 and 3 a.m. on July 5th, and the names were provided to the public at 5:30 p.m. Monday. At that point, no arrests had been announced. Former high-ranking police officials said that while this is the norm, each investigation is different. There could be circumstances where those types of details are critical and are being used to eliminate somebody as a suspect or potentially include somebody as being a suspect, said Jeff Ronaldo, a retired Buffalo Police captain and department chief of staff. You want to make sure that details being given to you are accurate and they're not something that somebody read in the paper or saw on TV. Competing interests at play. Law enforcement agencies want their homicide investigations to lead to arrests, indictments, prosecutions, and convictions. As much as you want to provide that information because you're not really hiding anything, the decision is made to not release it, said Pat Fitzgerald, a retired Town of Orchard Park police chief who now runs a school security consulting firm and oversees campus safety at Hilbert College. Because ultimately you want to make sure the end justifies the means, and you want to make sure that you're not doing anything today that's going to jeopardize where you want to get to tomorrow. Police do not have valid concerns that releasing too much information too soon can upend an ongoing investigation, said Murzak, the attorney and former prosecutor.
You're listening to today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 9:15 a.m., and for our afternoon listeners, the time is 4:15 p.m. And now on to a front page feature. Violence is a hot topic in the race for governor. A dozen victims shot in New York City, 11 victims shot in Buffalo, 3 victims shot in Niagara Falls, 2 of them fatally. It was a blood-spattered July 4th weekend, adding fodder to what is suddenly the top issue in the race for governor, violent crime. For Nassau County Executive Bruce Blakeman, it fit the narrative that Governor Kathy Hochul presides over a state inundated by violent crime influenced by years of left-leaning criminal justice policies. On July 1st, the Republican vying to unseat Hochul, a Buffalo-born Democrat, stated on the social media platform X that under Hochul, overall crime had jumped 22% and violent crime increased 11%. Under his watch, he said, Nassau County had become the safest county in the country. But the data from the state's Division of Criminal Justice Statistics did not support Blakeman's boast or the narrative that New York State is engulfed in crime. The statistics Blakeman used to criticize Hochul's record were from 2022, her first full year in office. While the data showed the total number of index crimes, murder, rape, robbery, burglary, aggravated assault, larceny, motor vehicle larceny, was higher in 2025 than in 2021, the total number of violent crimes was lower. There were 348 fewer murders, 1,849 fewer rapes, 1,857 fewer burglaries over that span as well. Index crimes and violent crimes both increased in Nassau County under Blakeman compared to his predecessor Laura Curran, the Democrat whom he defeated in 2021. Curran's highest statistics for index and violent crimes would have constituted Blakeman's lowest level, DSCJ, the Department of DCSJS data showed. In response, Blakeman downplayed Curran's numbers. In a statement, he attributed the rise in crimes over the predecessor to the pandemic, an explanation he neglected to mention when criticizing Hochul's record. Comparing crime rates during the COVID-19 lockdown to the reopening of the country post-COVID-19 is ridiculous, he said. An expert on crime statistics said politicians often seize the chance to boast about a subject important to voters regardless of how closely their campaign rhetoric strays from data. Crime attracts attention. People worry about their personal safety and their neighborhoods, and so you can't keep politicians away from it, said Jeffrey A. Butts, a research professor at John Jay College of Criminal Justice in Manhattan. I always tell people if anyone who is either in office or running for office tells you something about crime numbers, you just smile and say, thank you, and slowly back away, and go look it up yourself. See what they're talking about. It's not one side or the other. Both do that. Butts said politicians cherry-pick comparisons and statistics to make them look good or their opponent look bad. Unless there's someone in the room who is familiar and has it at the ready and can actually quote a number back to them, it works because the room will either boo or applaud based on what they hear, Butts said. You can't trust it. In a statement, Hochul campaign spokesperson Ryan Radlevecki said the governor has invested $3 billion in public safety to bring crime down and give law enforcement the tools they need. He said Blakeman, quote, let violent crime hit decade highs. In her State of the State address in January, Hochul said that when she came into office, New York was facing a crisis of crime and disorder. 4 years later, she boasted crime was at record lows. A spokesperson for Hochul provided statistics from DCJS showing New York City experienced an all-time low in shooting incidents last year. But there also have been increases in crime under Hochul. The data shows New York State experienced 301 more robberies, 361 more aggravated assaults, 43,694 more larcenies, and 5,161 more vehicle thefts last year than it had in 2021. On Wednesday, Erie County Republican Committee Chair Michael Kraker joined GOP lawmakers and candidates outside Buffalo City Hall focused on the shootings over last weekend, which they said were the product of Democratic policies. Some of the officials were retired members of law enforcement. Republicans and law enforcement representatives have widely criticized the state's justice reforms that went into effect on January 1st, 2020, signed by now former Governor Andrew Cuomo. Under the reforms, judges could not detain or set bail for defendants charged with most misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies, with exceptions known as, quote, qualifying offenses. That was later added. The state also enacted reforms to speed up the time frame in which prosecutors must disclose 21 different types of evidence, known as discovery, with the defense or risk having the case dismissed. What happened this weekend in Buffalo wasn't a fluke. It's the predictable result of years of soft-on-crime policies from Democrats in Albany and here in Erie County, who have failed to stand behind our police and put public safety first, and our communities are paying the price, Craker said in a statement. Voters see it, and they feel it, and this November, they have the power to do something about it. It's time to remove the politicians who've made our communities less safe and elect Republican leaders with the experience and values to end this lawlessness and protect our families.
And on to our first world story. Castro grandson's role in U.S. talks splits Cubans. Article is by Nora James Torres. Cubans who self-describe as revolutionaries have been turning to social media to question the rapid ascent of Raul Castro's grandson and his role in negotiations with the Trump administration in an unusual sign of divisions among core government supporters. Raul Guillermo Rodriguez Castro has no formal government position, but as a direct channel to his grandfather and a powerful figure of his own, overseeing the family interests in GAESA, G-A-E-S-A, the military conglomerate that controls about 40% of the island's economy, he has been in contact with Secretary of State Marco Rubio's team since early this year. He was also present during a meeting with CIA Director John Ratcliffe when the U.S. intelligence chief visited Havana in May. Miami Herald sources have met him in Havana, have come out of meetings with little doubt that Rodriguez Castro holds a powerful position on the island, can greenlight economic deals, and makes day-to-day national decisions in consultation with his non-agenarian grandfather. His role in the negotiations with the Trump administration had already sparked ire among Cuban exiles who had trouble coming to terms with Rubio's contacts with a member of the Castro family. Now, Cuban government supporters had a similar reaction after Rodriguez Castro confirmed to USA Today what U.S. media have been reporting for a while, that he has been leading the U.S. talks on the Cuban side. I can negotiate with anyone designated by the U.S., Rodriguez Castro said, if given the opportunity, of course, with Trump. Those and other comments struck a nerve with retired Cuban diplomat and pundit Carlos Azucarera, who in a publication on Facebook called them imprudent. Relations and conversations with various U.S. administrations have been far too sensitive for the Cuban leadership to allow such brazenness, said Azucarera, who lives in Cuba. I find it hard to believe that any level of the Cuban leadership authorized something so crude and clumsy regarding such a sensitive matter. Comments from Azucarera's Facebook followers were divided between those voicing similar indignation and those questioning his naivety for overlooking the country's political dynamics, noting that the Castro family has been the center of power for decades. Other critics of Castro's grandson also took aim at his wealthy lifestyle, far removed from that of average Cubans, especially at a moment of severe economic crisis. Israel Rojas, a singer-songwriter in Cuba with the band Buena Fe, which regularly performs at government rallies, posted a comment on Facebook saying that, in the revolution I knew, or the one I thought I knew, who knows the extent of my anachronism? Guys like the ones in the Gringo article, Raul Guillermo, always met a bad end. No one had ever dared to go that far before, he said, adding that Rodriguez Castro's lifestyle was incompatible with the austerity and revolutionary morality. In hundreds of online comments about Rodriguez Castro this week, many posters urged the government to reject his statements. Others questioned why Cuban authorities had not publicly disclosed his role. Many more said he was unqualified. Critics of the government in turn noted that government officials and especially members of the Castro family had always enjoyed a life of luxury behind a veneer of revolutionary austerity, which has become more evident in the social media era. The controversy is important because it reveals cracks within the group of core government supporters and suggests that a future bid by Rodriguez Castro for a formal leadership position would not be without challenges.
Venezuelan quake survivor mourns her teen forever friends. Maria Alejandra Sanz turned away when she heard rescue workers had pulled the lifeless body of one of her best friends from the rubble of a building leveled by twin earthquakes that struck La Guaira state in northern Venezuela last month. The 17-year-old high school student had lain in near darkness for 17 hours after the June 24th quakes, trapped beneath the collapsed building in the coastal town of La Guaira, where she had grown up, drinking her own urine to survive and assuming the other members of her dance troupe were dead. Of the group of 10 friends who'd been preparing a routine for their high school graduation, 4 didn't make it out alive. "I'm fine," Sanz said unconvincingly during an interview in front of her former home 9 days after the disaster. Earlier that day, rescuers had pulled the body of her friend Gonzalo Marquez from the rubble. Then came a string of unanswerable questions. Would her friends have survived if rescuers had arrived sooner? Would things be different if the dance troupe had practiced in a different building? What if she'd been with Marquez downstairs instead of fetching him water from her upstairs apartment? Why does she get to go to university while he's laid to rest? Raised amid economic collapse, mass migration, and authoritarian rule, Sanz and her friends began 2026 believing the U.S. ouster of Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro might finally offer a different future. Then came the quakes, which the government says have so far killed over 4,000 people and injured nearly 17,000 others. Saved by a friend's thirst. Sanz's troupe had been practicing 7 days a week in the month leading up to the quakes, sometimes going until 3 a.m. Graduation was in 3 days. About 20 minutes before the quakes, Marquez asked Sanz for water. She went to the third-floor apartment she shared with her parents, petted her dog Bruna for the last time, and was about to reach the water when the building began shaking at 6:04 p.m. She moved to the nearest doorframe and seconds later was engulfed in darkness as the floors below her gave way. The doorframe fell over her midsection diagonally, shielding her from a collapsed wall. Sanz saw a sliver of light across her fingers and knew she was not buried too deep. She was able to free her feet by slipping out of the oversized sneakers she was given for the dance performance. She says she knew her own urine might offer her only chance to drink, so she caught what she could in her mouth and raised it to her. The light soon faded and she prayed. "If I have to die, let it be while I'm asleep," she remembers thinking at the time. Sanz woke to light falling across her hand again and began clawing toward it, wedging her body slowly between chunks of concrete, making a hole she could fit through in the wall above her. When she emerged with half her body free, she yelled out to neighbors for help. Sanz's 71-year-old father, who'd been outside along with his wife at the time of the quakes, sprinted up the pile of debris. The teen hung on to him in a mental fog. When she got to her mother, Sanz learned that 5 of her 10 friends had escaped unscathed. "What about Gonzalo, Isa?" Sanz asked. There was no news about Marquez, but volunteer rescue workers had seen Isa Campos, who Sanz had known her whole life, conscious underneath the rubble. She was alive, they said. At the time, it was true. Jeffrey Campos, the father of the trapped girl, had arrived at the scene within 2 hours of the disaster and spent all night plunging into the mass of concrete and steel with the father of another dancer. By 11 a.m., a Caracas police unit joined the effort using only their bare hands. The equipment they needed to pull Isa Campos from between 2 beams never arrived. She died after 24 hours after the quakes. Her body remains in the rubble. Help arrived late, her father said outside a church where a mass was held in his daughter's honor. Rescue workers, firemen, and the military did not arrive until 2 or 3 days later. After seeing a TikTok video about the trapped dancers the night of the quakes, civil engineer Andres Gonzaga set out from his home in central Colombia with hydraulic and power jacks, hand tools, diapers, and baby cream. "I saw it and thought, that could be my daughter," said Gonzaga, a father of 3. He arrived the next night to a disaster site strewn with bodies and limbs. He coordinated volunteer rescue workers at the Sands family's building, scouring the rubble for the missing dancers and 15 other children who'd been playing table tennis inside. Venezuelan authorities finally arrived 3 days after him. In total, Gonzaga spent around $35,000 on the rescue effort.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. The time is 9:30 a.m. for those listening in the morning and 4:30 p.m. for those listening in the afternoon. And we'll go to our first national story. Trump accounts could collide with communists, claim. Article is by John T. Bennett. President Trump's recent attacks on Democratic Socialists who have won Democratic Party primaries could clash with his idea of creating investment accounts for American adults. The administration this past week launched its Trump Accounts Initiative for Children, which includes a one-time government contribution of $1,000 for each eligible child. The president on Monday floated what would be another costly government-funded program. You haven't seen anything yet. Between individual contributions and the seed funds, $800 million in new capital will be invested in the stock market for America's children this week. And I also think that we're going to be putting numbers in the budget which will be really spectacular because it's really not costing us anything, Trump said as a group of children looked on at the Oval Office. We're giving this money to children so they can have a good life. And we're going to be doing also something we're working on later on, and it'll be also, I think, very popular. And I guess the best definition is they have a plan in Australia, which people really like. It's really worked out very well, incredibly well, and very respected. And we're going to be talking about that with Congress and see if we can implement it. And that would be more for grown-ups as opposed to children, but it's something that's going to be great, I think, if we can get it done, and we're going to try very hard. He said, previewing what would be a possible rare legislative ask so close to a midterm election. Trump appeared to be referring to the Australian retirement system, which is composed of three main pillars, two of which do most of the heavy lifting. The first is a means-tested government pension available to eligible retirees who meet income and asset limits. The second is known as superannuation, a mandatory retirement savings program created in 1992 that requires employers to contribute 12% of a worker's wages into a tax-advantaged investment account. It covers most workers between the ages of 18 and 70, and employees can boost their balances through voluntary salary sacrifice contributions, which are now capped at $30,000 annually. Withdrawals are tightly restricted until retirement. Former Australian Prime Minister Paul Keating, a Labour Party member, has called the program, quote, the envy of the developed world. Trump administration officials have said the Trump accounts for children were designed to grow over time through private investment, with families and others able to make additional contributions that will be subject to annual limits. The president and other supporters argue the accounts should encourage long-term saving and wealth building from birth, while critics question the cost, distributional effects, and whether the funds would meaningfully reduce wealth inequality compared with other child-focused policies. Still, taxpayer funds collected by the federal government are seeding the youth accounts. Trump's mention of seeking lawmakers' approval with their constitutional power of the purse suggests the same would be true for his envisioned adult accounts. Proposing what would be a major government payout to American adults appeared to clash with Trump's recent daily attacks on the list of Democratic socialists who have won primaries and could be headed to Congress in January. Asked how the envisioned adult accounts might work and just what Trump could ask Congress to approve, a White House official directed a reporter to an April executive order endorsing high-quality, low-cost individual retirement accounts. That order directed administration officials to prepare legislative recommendations to codify the policy set forth in this order so that workers lacking access to employer provided retirement plans, including workers in small businesses, part-time workers, independent contractors, and self-employed workers, have access to a retirement option with low fees, eligibility for the federal Savers Match or other matching contributions, diversified index-based options, automatic portfolio choices, and portability. Trump on Wednesday during a NATO summit wrapping press conference in Ankara, Turkey, noted that he was number one on TikTok because all I do is talk about communism. Turn it over to you, Edwin.
Now for a bit of a national and international story. U.S.-Canada set opening date for new bridge after delay. The Gordie Howe International Bridge will open to traffic July 27th under an agreement between Canada and Michigan and with the support of the U.S. government, Canadian officials said on Friday. The announcement came a few hours after Republican U.S. Senate candidate Mike Rogers, an ally of President Trump, said the bridge was expected to open soon to traffic through a deal negotiated by the United States and Canada. Rogers made the comments during a Friday radio interview with Paul W. Smith. Rogers cited a conversation he'd had with Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary in Trump's administration. The deal will be announced in the next few days, Rogers said. The Canadian government, in its Friday statement, laid out some broad strokes of the agreement between the U.S. and Canada, including those focused on toll governance and transparency, as well as investments in the region, including through the establishment of a 15-year economic development fund tied to a portion of profits from bridge operations. The Windsor-Detroit Bridge Authority will also work collaboratively with the government of the United States on toll rate adjustments, seeking concurrence for certain non-market-related toll changes, the statement said. The U.S. government would receive 50% of the bridge toll revenue and be able to veto any toll increase that is 10% over the current tolls, according to Reuters. Commercial shippers that sign up for the Gordie Howe Bridge's so-called breakaway discount toll program will pay charges of $6.90 U.S. per axle, according to rates that the new bridge's operators announced in March. Lutnick and U.S. Ambassador to Canada Pete Hoekestra have been leading the negotiations with Canada since a June 11th bridge opening was abruptly canceled at the last minute. The ribbon-cutting invitations went out after Governor Gretchen Whitmer, a Democrat, and Susie Wiles, Trump's chief of staff, had talked, according to two of the sources who spoke with the Detroit News. Whitmer said in a Friday evening statement, the Gordie Howe International Bridge has, quote, always been a great deal for our state, calling it a testament to the enduring partnership between Michigan and Canada. Thousands of Michigan workers built this critical bridge, which will speed up auto production, lower costs, ease traffic, strengthen agriculture, and give people on both sides of the border better paying jobs and brighter futures. I'm proud to have fought for its opening and congratulate my partners who have worked on this issue alongside me for years, Whitmer said. Thank you to our allies in Canada and to the Michiganders who advocated for years to get this done. Gregor Robertson, Canada's Minister of Housing and Infrastructure, said in a statement that the bridge will strengthen the economies on both sides of the border for generations to come. This nation-building project is a testament to what Canada can accomplish when we come together with a shared vision, Robertson said. Our gratitude goes to all the staff, workers, partners, and community members involved. The long-awaited opening of the $4.7 billion six-lane span has been a point of contention in international drama this year after Trump threatened to block it in February under Canada until Canada treated the U.S. with, quote, fairness and respect. Rogers said the potential deal included joint determination on toll rates and a guarantee that China-manufactured vehicles wouldn't pour into the U.S. After the original bridge opening ceremony was canceled, Hoekestra told the Detroit News, quote, where we are right now is where we got the right folks talking and working on getting the bridge open. We're doing it collaboratively, and when our discussions are done, there will be an announcement on the day when the bridge will open, and we'll have the appropriate events at that time. Rogers' announcement came after the top Canadian diplomat based in Detroit expressed optimism Wednesday that an international stalemate over the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge would be resolved. Colin Bird, the Canadian Consul General to Detroit, commented on the $4.7 billion bridge during an event at the Detroit River International Wildlife Refuge, honoring what would have been the 100th birthday of the late John Dingell, the longtime Downriver congressman credited with helping assemble the land for the migratory bird refuge in Trenton. Bird suggested Wednesday it's only a matter of time before the bridge opens, though he didn't predict a timeline. I know when we get this bridge open, Congresswoman Dingell is going to have been a huge part of that. And so let me thank you in advance, because it's going to happen, Bird said.
And you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier Radio reading service. Moving over to our first business story. Eden-esque milks Buffalo for all it has to offer. Article by Joed Vieira. Leslie Woodward has embraced all that Buffalo and upstate New York offers the entrepreneurial community. Around 2 years ago, she brought her Hudson Valley plant-based dairy and food products startup Eden-esque to Buffalo after vetting the area as a finalist for the Grow New York competition. In Buffalo, Woodward has made some important connections that have made sense financially and from a resource standpoint. She connected with venture development organization Launch New York and participated in the University of Buffalo's Cultivator program for startups. She also moved her business closer to its contract manufacturing and distribution partners after transitioning from self-manufacturing to a co-manufacturing model. The Black woman-owned company has even hired a chief operational officer from Buffalo. Additionally, Woodward is in the midst of raising $1.6 million in funds as Eden-esque becomes a startup that expects to become profitable in the near future. It's fair to assume that being in Buffalo has worked quite well so far for Woodward, a native of Detroit. She said it's been easy to feel connected to the area. I really liked Buffalo, and I think some of the advantages of being here so far have been that a lot of our operations have been localized, said Woodward, a former chef in New York City and Paris. We get a lot of support from the Buffalo community. It's been unreal, she added. There's been mentorship and leadership programs. Most of our investment has come from Buffalo. We're really rooted. Buffalo has become an entrepreneurial town, and I think that helps too. Eden-esque is an emerging brand in the Northeast that is starting to scale along the East Coast. Woodward hopes to eventually reach the Midwest and then expand nationally. She's now hit some key revenue milestones, allowing for the expanding footprint, and is pushing the startup forward as a branded food company and not just a plant-based milk company. However, it is Eden-esque's popular barista blend pistachio milk that has become a sought-after item. The product frequently sells out online and in retail locations, including the shelves of Whole Foods Market. It's been significant in market validation, Woodward said. Eden-esque is known best for its environment-conscious almond and oat milks that are gluten-free, vegan, and bring a combination of nutrient density and flavor with no thickeners or stabilizers. The company's products have also been sold in stores throughout Brooklyn and Manhattan and in corporate offices such as Calvin Klein and Estee Lauder, as well as restaurants and cafes in New York City. It means the brand is resonating in the marketplace, said Woodward, who founded the company in 2014. We haven't even begun to scratch the surface of what is possible. What I do know is that the customer and the consumer enjoy our product, and with the demand for the product, it is really exciting to see. Woodward, who worked in tourism, transitioned into becoming a chef for 20 years, starting a boutique catering business in New York City and serving as executive chef for the president of Columbia University, where she learned more about how food impacts communities. She also started a cold-pressed juice business before beginning the effort to get Eden-esque going. Woodward bootstrapped the company, bringing the products she made to a number of farmers markets and then self-manufacturing the products in Kingston. In 2023, she transitioned to a co-manufacturing model where the brand retains ownership of the recipe or design, while the partner handles the production, labor, and control quality. Eden-esque worked with Cornell Agritech to conduct the initial bench trial, and those results went to Steuben Foods, which became Woodward's contract manufacturing partner.
And in development news, Preservation Group eyes Quirk House for headquarters. The region's leading historic preservation advocacy organization is learning firsthand just how hard the preservation effort can be. Preservation Buffalo Niagara has been trying for more than 5 years to restore a historic one-time house of ill repute on Sycamore Street that dates back more than 150 years. It hopes to turn the Eliza Quirk boarding house into its new headquarters. The nonprofit organization originally planned to renovate the 4-story brick building at 72 Sycamore and combine it with a new 2-story, 3,500 square foot addition on the vacant lot next door at 68 Sycamore. That $3.2 million project would have created 6 affordable apartments and new offices for PBN and Heart of the City Neighborhoods, an affordable housing specialist that has worked with PBN. The plan would have reversed years of neglect for the 5,280 square foot former house and business of notorious 19th century high-end prostitute while bringing back a historically accurate look, and it was approved by the city's Preservation Board in January 2021. However, PBN was counting on low-income housing tax credits from the state, which it wasn't able to get, so it retreated, scaling back its plans to focus just on the historic building, where the nonprofits would occupy the 2nd and 3rd floors, while the 1st floor would have meeting space for the agencies and community with a classroom and workshop space in the former lower-level storefront. But costs went up 35%, forcing PBN to find more funding while it retooled its plans and drawings, and the agency's leadership transitioned from Jesse Fisher to Bernice Rattle, delaying the project further. Now, PBN is back with a complete exterior and interior rehab of the Quirk House to, quote, return the building to productive use while preserving its historic character-defining features and ensuring long-term building performance, according to a new application to the Preservation Board, which approved a revised $2.1 million project last month. The project relies mostly on state and federal historic tax credits and grants, but those are more certain than the housing credits. Heart of the City is no longer involved, so the building will just house PBN, with a Preservation Resource Center on the 1st floor to offer training around historic preservation and tax credits. The rest of the space will be available for lease. More time for sales tax breaks. The Lancaster Industrial Development Agency agreed last month to extend a sales tax break for a structural steel fabrication business that's constructing a 72,000 square foot manufacturing facility on vacant land along Cemetery Road. Seibel Modern Manufacturing and Welding Corp., which also makes powder-coated trays for lead-acid batteries, is building a production facility and headquarters on 9.1 acres that it acquired from Colbeck's Construction. That will allow it to relocate and consolidate its operations from 44,000 square feet of space at 38 Palmer Place in Lancaster and 19,600 square feet at 609 Indian Church Road in West Seneca, while offering more room for growth. It was approved for $1.28 million in tax breaks for the $14.5 million project in 2024, but has sustained delays because of the weather. So, the Lancaster IDA agreed to extend the period for the $196,563 in sales tax breaks through November 16th.
And as part of our newspaper reading, we now present the day's death listings. If you need further information on any of these names, call us at 716-821-5555. That's 716-821-5555. Amadori Beverly Ann Nee Hatchick. Banish Edward J. Sr. Burst Anthony Tony Scott. Brennan Mary Ellen Otto. Brylinski Richard J. Clark Thomas James. Connors Gary K. Corbeil Claude G. Dotson James N. Garland Nee Lang Carol. Gerbrocht Elmer K. Jitsevich Constance Connie Marks. Golba Joseph L. Gross Ph.D. Kenneth W. Gunther Robert E. Gwizdowski Phyllis Nee Imhoff. Hancock Linda June Siligui. Hendricks Dwayne. Jones Jr. David. Kahn, M.D., Kenneth Robert. Keller, Frederick King. Keller, Paul J. Charlie. Lavocat, Ann M. Lewandis, Anne Marie, Nee Wisharoff. Logal, John H. Mankey, Julie Ann, Nee Sabuda. Mariotti, Dominic. Mariotti. McLaren, Catherine, Nee Dow. Mead, John G. Mertz, Charles R. Moore, Meredith A. Moscow, Virginia Lee. Murphy, Laura Johnson. Murphy, Paul J. Murphy, Terry L. Murray, Rosemary Knapp. Neil Jr., Eddie. Nowak, James B. Palmer, Harry F. Pastor Boyd, Arthur H. Pierce, Michael. Preston, Margaret R. Nee Zile. Provino, Michael Angelo. Polk, Michael Jason. Radigan, William A. Grandpa Bill. Shawant, Ruth Jane. Nee Kernava. Sinibaldi, Linda J. Nee Wade. Steinig, Linda L. Nee Gallagher. Suits, Jean Fay. Troy, Paul Doug D. Vanderpool, Adeline P. Watroba, Lawrence R. Larry. Willis, Mary L. And Yonda, Charles Chuck L. Jr. If you need further information on any of these names, please call us at 716-821-5555. That is 716-821-5555.
And now for the horoscopes, it's Royal Stars from Georgia Nichols. Happy birthday for Sunday, July 12th, 2026. You're intellectual, analytical, and empathetic. People respect you. This is a slower-paced year. Take time to rejuvenate your energy, focus on business and personal relationships, and hang out with those who are kind, helpful, and have your back. Concentrate on your needs and what brings you happiness. The stars show the kind of day you'll have, with 5 being dynamic, 4 being positive, 3 is average, 2 is so-so, and 1 is difficult. For Aries, those born March 21st through April 19th, it's a 3-star day. This is the perfect day to kick back and relax at home or in surroundings that make you feel good. Some of you might choose to work from home. Others will putter around doing something to make your home look more attractive. But tonight, relax. For Taurus, those born April 20th through May 20th, it's a 4-star day. Although this is a poor day to make important decisions, sign documents, or volunteer for anything, nevertheless, it's a great day to schmooze. This is a lighthearted day. Tonight, be neighborly. Gemini, those born May 21st through June 20th, it's a 3-star day. Today is full of contradictions. You're interested in finances, cash flow, and shopping. However, because it's a moon alert all day, those are the things you should avoid. Tonight, check your money. For Cancer, those born June 21st through July 22nd, it's a 4-star day. Today, the moon is in your sign dancing with fair Venus, making you want to interact warmly with everyone. You'll be charming and diplomatic. Tonight, you're strong. For Leo, those born July 23rd through August 22nd, it's a 3-star day. Today you're drawn to gatherings and keeping up with what some friends are doing. This might make you tempted to spend money. Try to restrict your spending to food and gas. Tonight, solitude. For Virgo, those born August 23rd through September 22nd, it's a 4-star day. Today you'll enjoy schmoozing with others, perhaps a female friend or colleague. Discussions about future goals might arise. Explore any idea that interests you, but commit to nothing until tomorrow. Tonight, you're popular. For Libra, those born September 23rd through October 22nd, it's a 3-star day. You're high viz today, which is fortunate because you make an excellent impression on everyone. Explore topics and get your information, but wait until tomorrow to act. Tonight, you're noticed. Scorpio, those born October 23rd through November 21st, it's a 4-star day. You're hungry for adventure. Travel. Explore your own city. If you can't take a short trip, if you learn something new, it will stimulate you. Restrict spending to food and gas because today is a moon alert. Tonight, do something different. For Sagittarius, those born November 22nd through December 21st, it's a 3-star day. Be careful because the sun, the moon, and Mercury retrograde are in one of your many money houses tonight, tempting you to do financial negotiations. Tonight, check your paperwork. For Capricorn, those born December 22nd through January 19th, it's a 4-star day. This is a tricky day because both the sun and the moon are opposite your sign, which means you have to be accommodating. Avoid important decisions because of the moon alert. Tonight, cooperate. Aquarius, those born January 20th through February 18th, it's a 3-star day. Your attempt to be efficient in whatever you do might be eroded by Mercury retrograde. Just accept what's happening and go at a more leisurely pace. Double check your work, but tonight, work. And lastly, Pisces, those born February 19th through March 20th, it's a 4-star day. Artistic people can make art today because it will be easy to think outside the box. Social occasions and fun schmoozing will please you. Enjoy fun times with kids as well as romantic outings. Tonight, play. You're listening to a reading of articles from the Buffalo News for Sunday, July 12th on your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. We'll return for more readings after this short break. Your readers today are
Dan Arth
and Edwin Vieira.
Hello, listeners. Give 716 is happening now. It's an online fundraiser sponsored by the Buffalo Bills and Buffalo Sabres Foundations with dozens of prizes and matching grants available to make your donation to Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service go farther. You'll find a complete list on our Facebook page, but here's what I suggest. Mark your calendar for Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. If you make any size donation to radio reading on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m., we'll automatically enter you in a drawing for a pair of Buffalo Bison's tickets, redeemable for a Tuesday through Thursday home game before August 31st. If you donate $50 or more, you'll also receive your choice of a Buffalo Bills, Sabres, or Bandits pendant and a chance to win an even grander golden ticket one-of-a-kind experience from the Bills and Sabres, like tickets, private tours, and autographed team merchandise. You can go to give716.org anytime before July 17th to make a donation to Radio Reading. Make a donation on Thursday, July 16th from 8 p.m. to 11:59 p.m. to win the extra prizes. That's give716.org. Search for your Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service and make a very important donation supporting our future.
We'll continue now with our reading of articles from today's Buffalo News. Your readers for today are
Dan Arth.
and Edwin Vieira. For our first local story, members of church that reopened fear it may not succeed. St. Jude is only 2 masses a month and lacks necessities. Several hundred people erupted in cheers and applause before Terry Sack even had a chance on Sunday to finish welcoming to St. Jude the Apostle Parish in North Tonawanda for the first time in more than a year. Sack, who was serving as lector at Mass, described it as like being at a Bills game, albeit a little more reserved than that. Everyone was very excited to be there. I hope it can continue, said Sack, who has been part of the parish since her baptism as a baby. It was the first Mass in the church since it closed on May 4th, 2025, as part of a merger with St. Christopher in the town of Tonawanda. But even with the joy of the reopening, parishioners who pushed for it expressed frustration that there aren't enough Masses being scheduled at the church for it to succeed. The Mass was a remarkable development for a church property that was shuttered and put on the real estate market until the Vatican's dicastery for clergy agreed last year to examine whether the Buffalo Diocese was correct in merging the parishes. Then in May, the Vatican office overturned the merger and said St. Jude should remain a freestanding parish. It's been a somewhat awkward transition so far. Much of the church's ecclesiastical ornaments, including statuary and large crucifix behind the altar, were removed months ago, but have not been returned. Worshippers noted there were no missalettes available in the pews at the Mass. In addition, there was no choir, organist, or guitarist to lead hymn singing, and no collection baskets being passed around. The Reverend Michael Lamarca, priest celebrant, didn't acknowledge anything about the closing and reopening before or during the Mass, according to multiple people who attended. Quite honestly, it's everything you could have done to sabotage the reopening, said Victoria Vanille, a parishioner who led the successful Vatican appeal effort. On top of it all, bats were recently discovered inside the church, according to a bulletin announcement. The bats aren't considered a danger to anyone, but they can't be dealt with until August at the earliest, due to state and federal regulations on the removal of roosting bats, which are an endangered species. St. Jude is part of a family of parishes known as the Roman Catholic Community of the Tonawandas, which also includes St. Christopher, St. Amelia in the town of Tonawanda, and Our Lady of Chetsawa in North Tonawanda. Lamarca is pastor of the parishes, which also share one other priest. Lamarca told the news that the reopening of St. Jude will start with 2 Masses per month on the first Sunday and first Friday. He said he expected good turnout for the Sunday Masses, at least for the first few months, but wants to understand the level of long-term commitment to the parish and is asking for parishioners to re-register at St. Jude if it is their intention to stay there. With it being over a year, people have resettled. I've had parishioners say they don't want to go back. They think it's a mistake. Other parishioners are happy it's reopening, said Lamarca. So we have to see it. Is there a demand for it? The financial viability of the parish is now a question as well, whereas it might not have been an issue in 2024 when the diocese announced plans to merge or close dozens of churches, he said. And with just 2 diocese priests now assigned to the 4 parishes, it's getting even more difficult to cover Masses at all the sites. Vanille said St. Jude is being set up to fail if it's limited to 1 Sunday Mass per month without a collection taken and no opportunities for sacraments such as baptisms, weddings, and funerals to be held at a church. She said she'll push for more Masses and for the return of the large crucifix that was relocated to St. Christopher. Some parishioners also called for the return of labeled envelopes so they can make in-person donations to the collection basket. Lamarca said it is too costly to return the crucifix and have envelopes printed. He also said proper protocols for the handling and safeguarding of collected cash and checks have yet to be put in place at St. Jude. Parishioners may donate through a safe and secure online process, though, he said. We're trying to keep expenses as low as possible for viability purposes, he added. Save Our Buffalo Churches, a local group that's provided support for parishioners seeking to halt parish mergers and keep churches open, will be asking canon lawyers to take a closer look at the constraints imposed upon St. Jude, said Irene Kazmersak, a Save Our Buffalo Churches spokeswoman. We don't understand why the pastor and the diocese are not following the dicastery's order, which is to put the parish back the way it was, basically, she said, and the way that it was having Masses every week, weekend, and daily Masses. Kazmierzak is not a St. Jude parishioner, but she attended the reopening Mass and said it was heartwarming to see so many people coming together again for worship after having been apart for a while. The lack of music throughout the Mass didn't prevent someone from belting out the opening lines of God Bless America at the end of the liturgy, which prompted the entire congregation to join in and sing a cappella. It raised some goosebumps, said Sack.
To our next local news story, pilot feared worst as laser disrupted landing in Buffalo. Article is by Patrick LeCamp. 2 years later, Delta Airlines pilot Stephen Harmon still vividly recalls his really close call to a disaster flying into Buffalo. The retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel has flown military and commercial aircraft more than 15,000 hours over 35 years, treating bad weather, winds, ice, and malfunctions as normal and even routine for me. But what happened on the night of March 1st, 2024, scared Harmon as he guided Delta Flight 2334 toward the runway at Buffalo Niagara International Airport. A beam of green light from a laser shined into the cockpit for 60 to 90 seconds as the aircraft descended. Quote, I have faced many stressful and risky situations in my flying career, but this one is right up there in the top 3, Harmon said Friday in U.S. District Court at the sentencing of the man convicted of pointing the laser at the Airbus 321. It was a really close call to a disaster, and one I hope never happens to me or any other pilot ever again. Getting shot in the eyes with a laser intentionally the whole way down an approach while manually landing a plane at night with 180 people right behind me, that is not normal, Harmon said. That is not safe. I was distracted, I was nervous, and I was fearful I'd lose my sight and something terrible would happen. The incident did not end with the disaster Harmon feared, but it will cost a Cheektowaga man his freedom. U.S. District Judge Lawrence Villardo said he could hear the fear in the Delta captain's voice as he recounted in court how he dealt with the laser beam. This is a dangerous, dangerous crime, Villardo said, with a plane load of passengers coming from Atlanta put at risk. This could have brought the plane down. It's not a rare federal crime. Nationwide, pilots reported 10,993 laser strikes to the Federal Aviation Administration in 2025. Joseph Crapsey, 31 of Cheektowaga, who lives in the flight path of the airport, previously pleaded guilty to knowingly aiming the beam of a green laser pointer at the Delta flight coming into Buffalo. Villardo on Friday sentenced Crapsey to 18 months in prison, which is at the low end of sentencing guidelines that suggested a term of 18 to 24 months. Villardo, however, said he imposed the longest possible period of post-release supervision, 3 years, with location monitoring for part of it. The judge ordered 6 months of home incarceration and detention, and then 3 months of curfew after Crapsey's prison release as a way to phase in his re-entry into society with oversight. Crapsey did not have any ill intent or desire to harm those on the plane, said Assistant Federal Public Defender John J. Morrissey. Morrissey described Crapsey as profoundly autistic, although that did not become his primary diagnosis until a 2021 psychological evaluation. Mr. Crapsey does not function as a neurotypical person, Morrissey told the judge. Morrissey said the diagnosis should inform the court's understanding of what he called Crapsey's relatively low blameworthiness, and the defense lawyer suggested a time-served sentence. Crapsey has been in custody for about 3 months. Structure, not incarceration, is what Crapsey needs, Morrissey said. Crapsey's diagnosis explains his actions, he said. This case involves shining a laser pointer at an aircraft, and afterward authorities said he violated his release by going into a neighbor's yard and starting a fire. Crapsey was fascinated with light, Morrissey said in a defense memo, which eventually became a fascination with fire. People with autism often develop fixated interests which can provide them a sense of comfort or well-being, Morrissey said. Mr. Crapsey's return to these interests is not defiance, Morrissey said. It's a symptom. Crapsey, diagnosed as deaf as an infant, followed Friday's hearing with the assistance of a sign language interpreter. His only comment to the judge was, "Everything John said is right."
Downtown becomes a feast for the senses. 43rd Annual Taste of Buffalo draws thousands to indulge. Downtown streets were blocked off Saturday afternoon, but senses, especially taste and smell, were wide open. The sun-drenched 43rd Annual Taste of Buffalo brought thousands of people and appetites to Delaware Avenue and beyond. This year's event, which organizers said is the largest two-day festival of its kind in the country, had 42 different vendors selling food and drinks to hungry attendees walking up and down Delaware Avenue and around Niagara Square. Each vendor is limited to 4 different items, and guests pay for them using tickets bought from the Taste of Buffalo event. Vendors fired up their grills at 11 a.m. to start serving their guests, but they won't be finished for good until 7 p.m. on Sunday when the event wraps up. Some longtime vendors had lines that stretched around their tents, like the Cheektowaga-based Bavarian Nut Company, which sells sweet, savory, and spicy roasted nuts. "This is our corner," said Dan Desrosiers, who co-owns the business with his partner, Shara Desrosiers, monitoring toward the tent they had set up between Huron Street and Delaware Avenue. Though the Desrosiers took over the company 14 years ago, they've been a staple of the event for the last 30. "We've been here forever," Dan Desrosiers said. The Bavarian Nut Company roasts all of the nuts on site with machines stationed at the back of their tent, and since the business doesn't have a storefront and mostly does sales through online orders, the Taste of Buffalo gives the business opportunities to meet customers face to face. "We love interacting with people," Dan said. "The nuts on site being roasted, here, the smell, it's like an experience. That's what we like about it." After getting their tickets, Suzanne Weiss, Cheryl Wickham, and her son, Theodore, out-of-towners, who were back for the Kenmore East class reunion, planned their walk down the mile-long stretch to hit all the options they wanted. They made sure to grab a Texas Twinkie, a jalapeno stuffed with brisket, cream cheese, and bacon, a fried PB&J, and a Loganberry cheesecake. While they still had a few more stops to make, Theodore wanted to try the fried shark. They said the Texas Twinkie was their favorite so far. "We tried it because my husband went to the restaurant in Texas that originally made them, and he said it was really good," Cheryl Wickham said.
And you're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time is 10:15 a.m. for those listening in the morning and 5:15 p.m. for those listening in the afternoon. And Edwin, I'm hungry now.
Me too.
And we're going to stay with food. Why not? We love it in Buffalo. So our first feature story, Whirlwind Taste Tour yields 9 solid favorites. The Taste of Buffalo is a fever dream when your job is to try as much food in as little time as possible. This article is by Francesca Bond. "I consult the festival map like a wayward sea captain navigating a storm. My crew, 7 friends and colleagues to whom I now owe favors, returns from restaurant tents with a dizzying selection of international cuisine: Dutch pancakes, Jamaican chicken, Filipino noodles. We eat it all in teeny bites. All I can hear is live maramba. All I can see are food-filled paper boats. Also, the Oscar Mayer Wienermobile is here, but I don't have time to investigate that now. Welcome to the Taste of Buffalo, the only time of year when it's possible to try roughly 3 dozen foods from 9 restaurants in about an hour and a half, which is what I just did. I said I would return today as the Ghost of Taste of Buffalo present. Well, picture a very well waterlogged sea captain foodie ghost when I say, even in stressful conditions, when every bite is to be dissected and the sun beats down and any germaphobe tendencies need to be overridden, it's still fun to eat food with your friends. I'd do it all again. Just give me a year. Below is my dispatch from the Taste of Buffalo. Some dishes are must-tries. Others, you could skip. But overall, it made for a wonderful and memorable brunch. Nick Charlaps. The day began with ice cream. How very ice cream for breakfast day of us. Nick Charlaps was a food judge assignment. Taste of Buffalo's. Many judges are given a few restaurants to rate, and this was one of mine. I may have overlooked Nick Charlaps in pursuit of more adventurous cuisines if it wasn't an assignment, but that would have been a mistake. Just because I know I like Nick Charlaps ice cream doesn't make its chocolate vanilla twist less refreshing on a summer's day. The ice cream sandwich's chocolate cookie was well preserved, a feat of alchemy that it can flank ice cream without becoming soggy. The ice cream, as one of my friends noted, was light and airy, like an amuse-bouche for the 8-course meal to come. Must-try dish, chocolate and vanilla twist. Who doesn't want a simple, good ice cream on a hot summer's day? Milk therapy. I was eager to try the Filipino palabok, and it more than lived up to my expectations. A couple of shrimp, a sliver of hard-boiled egg, and a mild sauce coated a bed of translucent rice noodles. The restaurant's standout dish was the adobo, tender pork cubes braised in soy sauce and vinegar over steamed rice. An eating companion with Filipino heritage said it was excellent and took away a few tips, more sugar for sweetness, and her own adobo recipe at home. Must try dish, adobo, but get the palabok too. La Cocina de Tito. The Puerto Rican restaurant served tender chicken thigh glazed in a subtle passion fruit and coconut sauce that reminded me of a loaded plates highlight at an outdoor summer barbecue. For 10 tickets, the chicken comes with cilantro rice and a few discs of fried plantains, which round out the meal. But the chicken was the star. Must-try dish, grilled chicken thigh. How about some dimple pancakes? The Dutch mini pancakes were fluffy and moist under all of the various toppings. Traditional powdered sugar, Nutella and strawberries, tiramisu-inspired mascarpone, and coffee syrup. But my group's favorite was the tiramisu. I preferred the traditional powdered sugar for what it's worth to taste maximum pancake. But actually, we were all delighted by the vla, a drinking coffee custard. It is served in a small plastic glass and tastes like melted coffee ice cream at room temperature. Must try dishes, vla, which is VLA, and pancakes. And then we have pudgy potatoes. First, here's a blue ribbon for best name. Is there anything cuter than pudgy potatoes? The chicken-loaded potato bites were unique, actually more like a thick chicken, broccoli, and potato soup with thin mashed potato broth than chunky mashed potatoes. The other two potato sides, sweet potatoes topped with optional mini marshmallows, and baked potato salad seasoned with jerk spices were wonderful versions of classic potato dishes. If you are a potato person, you may as well try all three. But the must-try dish, jerk potato salad. And for those who like barbecue, Yankee Barbecue, the suite of barbecue foods, fatty Loganberry burnt ends, a spicy cream cheese and brisket-filled jalapeno Texas Twinkie, mac and cheese breaded and fried into a pork bomb, and smoked deviled eggs topped with brisket is decadent, but had our group ready to drive to Hamburg for the rest of Yankee Barbecue's offerings. Must have been very good. Must try dish.
Seems like it.
Loganberry burnt ends. Chef Big Wayne Jamaican cuisine. Chef Big Wayne's jerk chicken arrived nicely charred. The chicken curry was tender and spiced, a mild foil to the spicy Rasta pasta, which looked unassuming, a cheesy and creamy bed of bow ties, but packed a punch. The new Allentown Jamaican restaurant, a graduate of the West Side Bazaar, offered a flavor-packed selection. The must-try dish, curry chicken, but try the Rasta pasta if you like heat. The Sandwich Mother, Taste of Buffalo newbie offered crowd-pleasing, straightforward tater tots drizzled with elote sauce and corn kernels, a meat-packed beef birria, grilled cheese, and a slice of chicken cutlet in red sauce sub. Must-try dish, the birria grilled cheese. And we'll close with Venus Greek and Mediterranean. Venus's Greek fries are a local food truck staple. Crispy potatoes loaded generously with mayonnaise-based garlic sauce, feta cheese, chopped tomatoes, and onions. Those were always going to be good, but the phyllo dough wrapped chicken souvlaki and gyro bites were also a hit and a sensible street food as they can be eaten easily in a bite or two. Must-try dish, gyro bites. Over to you. You're going to have to finish because I'm going out for food.
Taking control of baby's birth, wary of hospitals, one Buffalo mom chose a midwife-led center for her care. When the time came to start her own family, Lauren Jefferson knew she didn't want to give birth in a hospital. She'd heard too many stories from women who said they felt mistreated or ignored by hospital staff. Some described feeling pushed into a C-section when they didn't believe they needed one. Then she learned the devastating statistics that put hard facts behind the stories. In New York, Black women are nearly 5 times as likely as white women to die from pregnancy-related causes, according to the state health department. Lauren sought a place where she could feel in control over the birth of her children, but still supported and cared for in the process. I didn't feel like I wanted to give birth on my back and be connected to 1,000 tubes and 15 million people coming in and out and everybody touching me and everybody's talking, the Cheektowaga woman said. I wanted something that was bare to the bones. Mostly, I just wanted it to be me, my support people, and somebody that could monitor if something was going wrong. What Lauren, age 21, and husband Juba Jefferson, age 22, sought and eventually found was a midwife-led birth center in Buffalo, one of just 4 accredited birth centers in the entire state. A choice outside of the hospital. Fika Midwifery at the Coit House in Buffalo is run by Maura Winkler, a certified nurse midwife who founded the practice in 2017 and is the director of midwifery. The practice's mission, they say, is to keep focus on the natural process of childbirth without medical interventions they consider unnecessary. Lauren delivered the couple's first child, Kalila, at the Coit House in November 2024. A little more than a year later, the family returned for the birth of their second child, Kalori, who arrived just after midnight on Thanksgiving Day. The care in general, it was very holistic, Lauren said. It was what you needed and not much more. Birth centers aren't for everybody, and they have their share of critics. But birth centers are seen as critical to boosting access, reducing health disparities, and advancing health equity. More birth centers also could help address growing maternal care deserts in rural areas. Winkler said women generally have to be healthier and low risk, and the Coit House would not handle those with major pre-existing health issues, such as diabetes or high blood pressure, or those who are pregnant with twins. The birth center requires first-time birthers to work with a doula, and the Coit House also talks to clients about a hospital transfer plan should the delivery require the level of care. As a certified nurse midwife, Winkler is a licensed healthcare professional who can deliver babies, provide prenatal and postpartum care, and prescribe medications. She attended all of the practice's 129 total births last year and works regularly with local doulas who provide emotional, physical, and informational support to their clients during pregnancy, labor, and postpartum. While the Coit House's volume is low compared to the more than 3,000 births a year that occur at Golisano Children's Hospital of Buffalo, the center provides choice for area women who, for a variety of reasons, prefer a more home-like and personal experience over the clinical setting of a hospital. The Coit House gives women in the community another safe and supportive option outside of the traditional hospital setting, said Shannon Johns, CEO of Calming Nature Doula Service and Center in Buffalo. It recognizes the importance of supporting not only the physical aspects of birth, but also the emotional and psychological experience of the mother and family. New York State Health Commissioner Dr. James McDonald said he's interested in seeing what can be done, including reviewing existing regulations to allow more birth centers to be established in the state. I think people who are pregnant deserve a choice in who delivers their baby, said McDonald, who noted that one of his 3 kids was delivered by a midwife. If they want a midwife, they should choose that option, and midwives generally have protocols that, if it's beyond their scope or ability, they refer you to an obstetrician. This works well. In a home-like setting, Lauren Jackson and Juba Jefferson met as teens in gym class in Texas, and they've been together ever since. They married November 8th, 2025. It was early June 2024 when the couple decided to load up the car and make the drive from Texas to be closer to family in Western New York. At the time, Lauren was pregnant with their first child. As she was getting to know the area, she set up prenatal care at a local hospital. But she knew she wanted a more homey setting. Homey. Juba was confused at first, thinking Lauren wanted a home birth. You want to give birth in the tub? Juba asked. But as Lauren explained, he understood, and his thought of his own family's experience at hospitals. She found only a couple of non-hospital birthing options in Western New York. Lauren researched Coit House and read the reviews, some negative, but many were positive, and she decided to give them a try. Still, there were nerves. She didn't know anyone who had delivered at a birth center, and other people kept asking her if an unmedicated, low-intervention birthing experience is what she wanted. But from the first meeting at Coit House, Lauren felt comfortable. The staff greeted her with open arms, and she said, quote, she didn't feel like a sore thumb.
Moving over to Asking Eric. Longtime friend, never willing to pay her fair share. Dear Eric, I have had a friend, Tilly, for 35 years, and I love her dearly. We have been through a lot together and helped each other through many tough times. But Tilly has changed over the past few years. Essentially, she has become what I call a, quote, taker. For example, she looks to others to treat her to lunches, but never offers to purchase even an appetizer for the rest of the lunch group. If a member of the group has a gift card for that establishment, when the bill comes, we will all apply the gift card to the total tab, then divide the remainder of the bill among the group. But when she has a gift card, she waits for her share of the bill to be tallied, then applies the gift card to her share only. The last straw was when we got tickets for a local theater. She asked me to drive, involving not only gas but paying tolls. She requested we park in a specific lot because she has trouble walking and wanted to be near the theater, which cost nearly double as it would have had we parked in a further away lot. When we were leaving and it came time to pay for parking, she did not even offer $1 to offset the cost for parking. Even her sister has said Tilly is always holding out her hand out for something. Now, a few of us have tickets for another event, and she is already asking me to drive to the theater and is discussing a meal afterward. I'm sure she'll want special parking and the premium price to go along with it. Again, the other friends are all wondering how to deal with this greediness. It is the cost, but it's also the principle. We want to continue to include Tilly, but we are at a loss as to how to address this with her. Tapped out in Midwest. Dear Tapped Out, it is possible Tilly is experiencing economic insecurity or having trouble making ends meet while still wanting to be involved socially. Obviously, it would be better for everyone if she was more upfront about her needs, but that can be hard. Understandably, one solution is to talk through the costs of an event beforehand and come to agreement about shared costs. For instance, you could bring up the parking situation from the last event and tell her that you'll be happy to give her a ride, but you want to make sure she's willing to split the expense with you. It's probably best to address this on a case-by-case basis, even though, as a group, you've noticed a pattern. Dear Eric, how do I convince my adult children to call me about once a week or 10 days? I'm 82 and they are 54, 52, and 44. I know they love me and my husband and always step up if we need help. I really miss them and I feel like I don't have a sense of their daily lives. They don't live in the same state we do, so visits are rare, about once a year. My daughter's visits are even fewer since she doesn't like where we live. I have told them exactly how I feel. My youngest is the only one who calls about once a month. I call them about once a month or text each. I don't see this changing. I'm afraid this won't change in my lifetime. I find it depressing, even though my life is full and often fun with friends. Signed, Phone Home. Dear Phone Home, I'm sorry you're experiencing this. It's frustrating that you've done the best thing to do in these situations. You communicated clearly and told them what you need, and they still have not stepped up. A phone call is not a hard ask. You might try being even more proactive by telling each to pick a day or even day and time that works for them for a weekly phone call. Say that this is non-negotiable. On that day, you might text them a reminder. Remember, today's Monday and we have our phone call. I'm looking forward to it. I know that this is more work for you and it's work that you shouldn't have to do. However, it may be that your children are not taking your wants seriously. If they can't or won't agree to this, then at least you'll have the opportunity to ask why. If there are deeper issues in your relationship, they can be more easily be resolved if you know about them. But if they are simply forgetting or taking you for granted, they need to hear clearly how their actions are coming across to someone they love.
You're listening to a reading of today's Buffalo News on your Niagara Frontier radio reading service. The time for our morning listeners is 10:30 a.m., and for our afternoon listeners, the time is 5:30 p.m. Now we move on to sports news. Bills Anderson Corbett to battle at LG. For the first time in a couple of years, the Buffalo Bills have some turnover on their offensive line. Left guard David Edwards departed in free agency, signing a monster contract with the New Orleans Saints. That means the Bills will have at least one new starter in front of Josh Allen for the first time since the 2024 season opener. The team was at risk of losing two starters, but center Connor McGovern re-signed just ahead of the start of unrestricted free agency. Preserving that relationship between McGovern and Allen was a good bit of business by President of Football Operations and General Manager Brandon Beane. McGovern has proven to be one of the best free agent signings by Beane since coming over from Dallas. At right guard, the Bills face an upcoming decision. O'Cyrus Torrence is heading into the final year of his rookie contract. He's been a staple in the lineup since joining the team as a second-round draft pick out of Florida in 2023. Beane is generally not ponied up big money at the guard position, but Torrence is a homegrown talent who's lived up to his draft status. Letting a player like that go is never easy. On the roster, 10, but with an asterisk. Lloyd Cushenberry III, Alec Anderson, Austin Corbett, Connor McGovern, Cedric Van Granger, Nick Broker, Armaj Reed Adams, O'Cyrus Torrence, Bruno Fina, Demetrius Weatherspoon. We'll use an asterisk because the Bills value positional versatility and list both rookie Jude Bowery and Tylen Grable as tackle guard on the roster. For our purposes, though, we'll count them as tackles first, putting the number of interior linemen at 10. So how many on the final? 53. 5, Anderson, Corbett, McGovern, Torrence, and Cushenberry. The most impactful offseason move, re-signing McGovern. Allen has worked with just two centers since the 2019 season, Mitch Morse and McGovern. Getting McGovern back preserved valuable continuity in what is one of the most important relationships on any football team. Beane did so with a contract that looks to be a great value, too. McGovern's new deal is worth up to $52 million over 4 years. That average annual value of $13 million ranks number 5 among NFL centers at the present time, but likely will be passed several times over the course of the deal, which takes McGovern through his age 32 season. The biggest question to answer in camp, does Cedric Van Granger have a role moving forward? The Bills signed veteran Lloyd Cushenberry in the offseason. He'll enter training camp as the likely backup to McGovern. If you've ever wondered how truly difficult it is to make the NFL, consider Van Granger's path. He was the starting center for back-to-back national championships at Georgia, where he started the final 44 games of his college career. As a senior, he was named a second-team Associated Press All-American and was a finalist for the Remington Trophy, given annually to the nation's top center. Despite his resume, he finds himself on the roster bubble, entering his third NFL season. So what's the battle to watch? Alec Anderson versus Austin Corbett. This is probably the biggest starting job up for grabs on the roster entering training camp, as Anderson and Corbett will compete to replace Edwards at left guard. Anderson has mirrored Edwards' time with the Bills in that they both have served as an extra offensive lineman in the team's jumbo package. Anderson's playing time in 2025, however, dipped after the Bills drafted tight end Jackson Hawes, who excels as a blocker. Anderson has the ability to back up all 5 positions along the line. Could that versatility actually hurt him in the competition? Corbett is more of an interior option only, so the Bills might want to put him at left guard, which would free up Anderson to work across the line in practice. So who's the under-the-radar player? Lloyd Cushenberry. At the NFL's annual meeting, Bills coach Joe Brady revealed that the Bills had identified Cushenberry as a possible replacement for McGovern as the team's starting center in free agency. That is, if McGovern departed. But that didn't happen. And it was telling nonetheless that Brady was so effusive in his praise of Cushenberry, who previously had signed a $50 million contract with the Titans in free agency. A torn Achilles tendon suffered during the 2024 season is now behind him, so it's fair to expect Cushenberry to be one of the Bills' key backup players along the interior offensive line.
Now to our next sports story. Marino's goal lifts Spain into semifinals. It had to be Mikel Merino, Spain's savior, came through again with a substitute goal in La Roja's 2-1 defeat of Belgium in a World Cup quarterfinal Friday afternoon in Inglewood, California. Marino has continued to reward coach Luis de la Fuente's faith in him as he recovered from a stress fracture in his right foot, which kept him on crutches for 2 months and on the sideline for most of 2026. But he's back, and a major reason Spain, the 2010 World Cup champion, has a showdown with France in Arlington, Texas on Tuesday, with the winner advancing to the World Cup final on July 19th in East Rutherford, New Jersey. France seeks its third straight final, having defeated Croatia in 2018 before losing to Argentina 4 years ago. The French also will be looking for revenge after losing to eventual champion Spain 2-1 in the semifinals of the 2024 European Championship. Quote, "If anyone should be afraid, it should be France. We knocked them out of the Euros," Spanish forward Lamine Yamal told TV España after the Belgium match. "Obviously, we are two great teams, among the best in the world. We'll see what happens, but we have no fear. We're very happy to be in the semis again after the Euros. We want to keep going to the final." Marino, who injured his foot in late January and underwent surgery, which he thought would keep him out of the World Cup, came off the bench to score the stoppage time winner versus Portugal in the round of 16 on Monday. He did it again on Friday in the 88th minute, 2 minutes after he entered against injury-plagued Belgium. "I'm so happy. I can't believe it. It's happened again," Marino said on TV España. "People say there's no such thing as coincidences, but if you go in there prepared, then it can fall for you again." He put in a rebound after substitute goalkeeper Sané Lamens spilled a soft shot by Paul Kerbassa. Lamens replaced the injured Thibaut Courtois 4 saves in the 71st minute when he couldn't play through a quad injury. In the second minute of second half stoppage, Spain defender Aymeric Laporte bailed out goalkeeper Unai Simon with a clearance in front of the goal. Belgium captain and midfielder Yuri Tielemans sustained an undisclosed injury during warm-ups and was scratched from the starting lineup. Hans Vanaken replaced him. "I don't think we've got anything to feel humiliated about," Belgium coach Rudy Garcia said through a translator. "Unfortunately, the stars were not aligned. We lost our keeper, we lost our captain. We had to sub out Kevin De Bruyne, and that wasn't part of our game plan. There were too many things. The Ducks were not in a row." Spain had not conceded a goal in the tournament through 5 matches, but found itself tied 1-1 at the half. Fabian Ruiz put Spain ahead in the 30th minute with a rebound off a shot by Dani Olmo, but a header by Charles de Ketelaere in the 41st was the equalizer. Spain almost opened the scoring in the 21st minute, but a strike by Yamal, who turns 19 on Monday, was wide off the left post. The lead came soon after. A cross by Pedro Porro from the left flank was struck by Olmo at the center of the box, forcing a right-handed save by Courtois. Ruiz, who got the start over Barcelona's Pedri in the midfield, was in perfect position for the putback. La Roja allowed Belgium back into the match with an uncharacteristic poor clearing, and Timothy Castagna sent a service in from the right to De Ketelaere, who got inside positioning on Korbasi and powered the ball past Simon. We were much the better team, but then when we were playing our best, Belgium managed to score their goal, Yamal said. No team really comes out to play us. Everyone sits back to defend. It's more difficult, but in the end, we got the victory.
In basketball, Wemby signs new contract extension. The San Antonio Spurs have signed Frenchman Victor Wembanyama to a multi-year contract extension, the team said on Friday. Financial details of the deal were not disclosed. Spurs family, I'm here to stay, whatever it takes, the 22-year-old wrote on social media. Wembanyama became the youngest player to win the Defensive Player of the Year award this past season and helped guide the Spurs to the NBA Finals, where they lost to the New York Knicks in 5 games. The first overall pick in the 2023 NBA Draft averaged career highs of 25 points, 11.5 rebounds, 3.1 assists in 64 regular games. The 7'4" Frenchman also recorded a league-leading 3.08 blocks per game and 1.03 steals, becoming only the 7th player in NBA history to average at least 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks in a season. Adebayo punches Herro. Bam Adebayo punched his former Miami Heat teammate Tyler Herro during a brief altercation in Las Vegas on Friday, ESPN and the New York Times' Athletic reported. Both the Heat and the Milwaukee Bucks, Herro's new team, confirmed to The Athletic that they were made aware of the situation but declined to comment further. Reports said the exchange took place on a practice court inside a hotel in Las Vegas, where NBA Summer League games are being held. Herro was with an AAU team that he runs. Adebayo approached him on the court, and after Herro said something to his ex-teammate, punched him in the head area, per ESPN. Security at the court escorted Herro away. Adebayo also left on his own, and Las Vegas police officials were summoned to the scene, The Athletic reported. Last week, a series of direct messages between Herro and an anonymous fan leaked, showing Herro's taking an apparent swipe at Adebayo's defense, saying, quote, "You should get paid $60 million to be a top-tier defender on some nights. I'm just wondering," Herro allegedly said in the messages. The Bucks dealt Giannis Antetokounmpo and Bobby Portis to the Heat for Herro, Khalil Ware, Jamie Jaquez Jr., Kasparis Djukanius, 3 first-round draft picks, a second-rounder, and a pick swap. In the WNBA, Paige Buchers scored 34 points with 6 rebounds and 6 assists as the visiting Dallas Wings defeated the Toronto Tempo 108-95 in Montreal. Jessica Shepard added 20 points and 17 rebounds for the Wings, who have won 4 straight. Arike Ogunbowale scored 20 points and had 7 assists as Dallas swept a 4-game road trip that included 2 wins against the Tempo. Aziz Fudd scored 13 points and Alicia Clark had 10. The announced attendance of 20,996 is a record for a WNBA regular season game. The previous record of 20,711 was set in Washington in 2024. Marina Mabrey scored 34 points with 6 3-pointers for the Tempo, who have lost 4 in a row. Laura Jascate has scored a season high of 25 points. Isabel Harrison scored 18, and Maria Conde had 12 points and 9 assists. Inyeke Ogunwuke scored a season high 25 points and collected 12 rebounds and 5 assists to lead the Los Angeles Sparks to a 102-87 victory over the visiting Chicago Sky. All 3 of Ogunwuke's 3-pointers came in the fourth quarter as Los Angeles recorded its second straight victory. Derica Hamby added 17 points and 7 rebounds. Ariel Atkins had 17 points and 6 assists, and Ray Burrell made 4 3-pointers while also scoring 17 for the Sparks. Erica Wheeler had 15 points and 8 assists for Los Angeles, which outscored the Sky 29-17 in the fourth quarter. And Veronica Burton highlighted a productive all-around effort with a game-high 17 points. Janelle Saloon led a relentless defense with 3 steals, and the Golden State Valkyries ran their winning streak to 7 with a 79-64 thumping of the Connecticut Sun in Uncasville, Connecticut. Saloon also had 16 points, a team high of 7 rebounds, and a block for the Valkyries. Diamond Miller had 14 points, Olivia Nelson Ododa 12, Aaliyah Edwards at 11, and Charlize Lager-Walker at 10 for the Sun.
And our next sports story, Bill's Mailbag by Jay Skursky. Which young players are poised to break out? Welcome to this week's Bills mailbag. Let's get right to your questions. Jim Mahar asked, which players from the 2025 and 2026 draft classes are you forecasting to have a significant positive impact on the Bills' success this season? And Jay responds, let's start with the second-year players. Maxwell Hairston will be penciled into the starting lineup at outside cornerback opposite Christian Benford. The job won't simply be handed to Hairston, however. Second-round draft pick Davison Igboneson is going to compete for that job in training camp, and he shouldn't be underestimated. The next three picks from 2025, TJ Sanders, Landon Jackson, and Dion Walker, should all have rotational roles on the defensive line. Walker, in particular, impressed as a rookie and will get the first chance to be a starter in the middle of the team's new 3-4 scheme. Jackson Hawes provided great value as a rookie fifth-round draft pick by proving to be one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL. He should have a similar or slightly expanded role this season. As for the 2026 rookies, TJ Parker will be an important part of the rotation at outside linebacker behind Bradley Chubb and Greg Rousseau. Igboneson will begin as the number 3 cornerback and will be one play away from being a starter. Fans have high hopes for fourth-round receiver Skylar Bell, but I would throw a bit of cold water on that right now. It's easy to get excited about skill position players, but Bell is currently number 5 on the receiver depth chart, and it's rare for a player in that spot to be a big factor in the offense. John Jarzinski asks, I'm underwhelmed by the Bills' depth at inside linebacker. Shaq Thompson, Bobby Wagner, etc. are available. What are your thoughts, Jay? Jay's response, I'm right there with you, John. I've been a proponent of re-signing Thompson all off-season. I thought he brought an edge to the defense last year that the group otherwise lacked. At this point in the off-season, it doesn't seem like Thompson's phone is ringing off the hook. I agree with the idea that he would add, at worst, quality veteran depth to a position that otherwise lacks it. It would be a similar story if the Bills were to sign Wagner, the NFL's reigning Walter Payton Man of the Year. He would immediately add leadership to the locker room. As it stands, the Bills are counting on Dorian Williams and Terrell Bernard to stay healthy. The options behind them are local product Joe Andreessen and rookie Caleb Elarms, or a fourth-round pick in April. It's fair to question if that's enough quality depth. To Jim's question earlier, though, Elarms or is a member of the rookie class who could end up playing a significant role. Jeff asks, in any given week, there's an article about players who are first on or last off the field at practice, but in the extra practice time, study hard, watch film, and listen intently to the coaches and fellow players, etc. Well, only one player can be first or last. Who is that for the Bills? The NBA is full of player coaches, Dave Cowens being the last in 78-79. Has the NFL ever had a player coach? Has a team or the Bills, anyway, ever let an assistant coach talk to another team who asked permission with the understanding that they would match the offer so he would stay? Jay's response, I don't get to the building early enough to see the first one, but can confidently say Benford is quite frequently the last one off the practice field during the regular season. It's been a long time, about 100 years, but a couple of the most famous names in NFL history served as player coach. George Halas owned the Chicago Bears, was head coach, and was a player. Jerry Jones should try that with the Cowboys. Curly Lambeau also was a player and coach for the Green Bay Packers during the same time period. The last official player coach in the NFL history was Dan Reeves, who suffered a knee injury as a player with the Cowboys and then served as an assistant to head coach Tom Landry in 1970. Back to you, Edwin.
Chasing a dream, how hitting the bricks, the books, and the ice helped Morozov become a Sabres first-round pick. Ilya Morozov didn't have a car when he got to Miami University's campus in southwestern Ohio. Students don't need a car on some college campuses, but on others, some form of personal transportation is a necessity. Morozov had a bike, and the 16-year-old zipped through campus each day in the summer of 2025, preparing for his first semester of college and his first season of college hockey. Morozov was diligent enough to plan his own days, from the time he woke up to the workouts to studying. Most 16-year-olds don't have that kind of attentiveness. Many of Morozov's peers still were planning for their sophomore or junior year of high school, carrying part-time jobs, getting fitted for varsity letter jackets, or planning college visits. Morozov also knew he couldn't prepare for college on his own. He recruited several skaters and goalies who spent their summers at the Miami rink to work out with him. Little did they know, they would take shots from a future first-round pick as the Buffalo Sabres selected Morozov, a 6'3", 200-pound center at number 20 overall in the NHL draft in June at KeyBank Center. Morozov will turn 18 on August 3rd, and he's a player who stood out as a two-way forward at Miami. He's lauded for his ability to prepare and adapt as he is for his steadiness on the ice. The Sabres drafted a player who moved to the U.S. from Russia when he was 14, intent on playing hockey, improving his English-speaking skills, and going to school. Little did Morozov know how soon he would become an NHL prospect. It's always been a dream to play in the NHL, Morozov said last month at the NHL Scouting Combine at Lacombe Harbor Center. It took me a long way, lots of hard work, lots of adventures and challenges, which you're supposed to overcome. Now I'm here. I'm glad I'm here. I'm really thankful I've had such an opportunity. From Russia to the U.S. Anthony Noreen was coaching the Tri-City Storm of the United States Hockey League when he oversaw a Futures hockey camp in Chicago in the summer of 2023. A 14-year-old forward continued to catch his eye, and in the final game of the tournament, he watched as Morozov scored 5 goals in his team's 6-0 win. Morozov showed he could score, but he'd also shown he could acclimate academically and socially. He studied English as an elementary school student in Russia, but didn't have the conversational practice. Part of his goal in coming to the U.S. to play hockey was to learn the language. It's not really helpful if you don't talk to people in English, said Morozov, who was born in Moscow. I knew some grammar, I knew some words, I knew some phrases. I actually thought that I'm going to do pretty good with my English before moving to the U.S. He admits he overestimated that point. He was initially paralyzed when he needed to engage in conversation, unable to understand the words, the sentences, the speed, the slang in terms of conversation. To understand, he had to adapt. Adapting meant engaging. Morozov went forward, full bore. He lived with a billet family in the Chicago area and attended Schaumburg Christian School. He started talking to people and found any way he could to engage, reaching a comfort level within a matter of weeks. Combining that experience, learning new words and new phrases, and combining it together with what I knew, that led me to speak English pretty well, Morozov said. Sam Povoznorik coached the Windy City under-15 AAA team Morozov played for and recalls the first time he met Morozov. He saw a powerful skater with exceptional playmaking ability who moved efficiently and whose mind quickly processed the game. Then, when he went into the locker room in the rink in Chicago, Morozov made a point to introduce himself to every skater on the ice with him and offered each one a handshake. It was a glimpse of what Morozov's family ingrained in him, even at a young age. Morozov's mother knew. Povoznorik explained that her son wanted to play professional hockey and that it meant he had to come to the U.S. for exposure, but he also had to hold up his end of the bargain by exercising diligence and organization. His mom wanted him to get an education, said Povoznorik, who is now the director and coach of Team Illinois and trains hockey players in the summer in the Chicago area. She made it clear to him, hockey's important, but so's everything else in front of it, being disciplined away from the rink.
Moving on to sports. Scores and standings from the WNBA. Results Friday: Golden State 79, Connecticut 64, Dallas 108, Toronto 95, Los Angeles 102, Chicago 87. Major League Baseball scores: the Rockies 4, Giants 3, Cardinals 2, Braves 1, the Diamondbacks 9, Dodgers 3, Blue Jays 5, Padres 3. And that's all for baseball. For those interested in the Wimbledon tournament for tennis, Friday's semifinal results: Yannick Sinner of Italy defeated Novak Djokovic 6-4, 6-4, 6-4, and Alexander Zverev defeated Arthur Ferry 7-6, 6-2, 6-4. Do a little golf updates. The PGA DP World Tournament after 2 rounds. We'll look at the top 5 results. Tom Kim in the lead at 9 under. Rory McIlroy at 9 under. Jordan Smith, 9 under. Looks like a 3-way tie there. Matt Fitzpatrick, -8. Minwoo Lee, -8. Another golf tournament, somewhat close to Buffalo, a little bit. Akron, Ohio. Cameron Percy, -7. After 2 rounds. Zach Johnson, -6. Jerry Kelly, -6. Boo Weekly, -5. Ryan Armour at -4. And for the ladies, LPGA tournament, after 3 rounds, Hai Ron Yu at -19. Akia Iwa at -16. Brooke Henderson, -12. Ma Sago, -12. Cassandra Alexander, -11. And we will close with the World Cup quarterfinal results. Thursday's result, France 2, Morocco 0. Friday's results, Spain 2, Belgium 1. Saturday's results, Norway versus England, Argentina versus Switzerland. Tuesday's game upcoming will be the semifinals, France versus Spain at 3 p.m. in Dallas. And Saturday's winners will be 3 p.m. in Atlanta. So that's the scores and standings, and you've been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Buffalo News for Sunday, July 12th. We read from the Buffalo News live on weekday and Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. and rebroadcast at 4 p.m. For more information, call 716-821-5555. And your readers today have been
Edwin Vieira
and myself, Dan Arth, and we thank you very much for listening.
If you're listening to this publication online, you're probably using our website, a podcast player like Spotify or iTunes, a streaming service like Siro, or a smart speaker. Did you know that we now have a dedicated app that can be downloaded to any mobile device, like a smartphone or tablet, for free? App users can conveniently access our live stream and any episode of our podcast easier than ever. To download the app, just type NFRRS in the search window in the Apple App Store or in the Google Play Store. Contact us anytime if you have any questions by calling 716-821-5555, extension 5. Thank you. program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability, which